All right, welcome to The Explainer. You know, we all love a good cookie, right? But we also want to eat healthier. And that's the big conflict, the delicious dilemma at the heart of what we're talking about today. We're going to stage the ultimate cookie bake-off, a classic favorite versus a brand new scientific challenger.
So, it all boils down to this one question, doesn't it? Can a cookie actually be delicious and good for you? Well, a team of food scientists got curious and decided to find out. And trust me, what they discovered is pretty fascinating.
Okay, so first things first, let's break down the actual problem here. Before we even get to the new kid on the block, we got to understand why our reigning champion, the classic cookie, can be such a health headache.
And at the center of it all, the delicious but kind of unhealthy heart of most cookies is butter. I mean, let's be real. It's what gives us that amazing flavor and that perfect, tender texture. But that perfection comes with a pretty big health price tag.
Yeah, see, butter is just loaded with saturated and trans fatty acids. We're talking about the exact kinds of fats the World Health Organization is always telling us to cut back on. And for good reason. They're linked to things like higher cholesterol, a bigger risk of heart disease, and even type 2 diabetes. So the challenge becomes super clear. Can we get that same buttery goodness without all the health baggage?
And this is where science steps in with a potential hero for our story. Researchers have been working on a much healthier alternative to solid fats like butter. So, let's meet our challenger.
It's called an oleogel, and it's basically this really smart bit of food science. What they do is take healthy, liquid plant oils, the good stuff, and they trap them in this kind of 3D web. This structure forces the liquid oil to act like a solid. So you get something that looks and behaves just like butter, but it still has all the health benefits of the original oil. Pretty cool, right?
So, how do you even make one of these? You might be thinking it's some super complex lab process, but it's actually surprisingly simple. In this study, the researchers just took some healthy rice bran oil and a little soy wax, combined them, and heated the mix up. A little stir, let it cool down, and that's it. You've got a stable, solid fat substitute. Our oleogel is now officially ready for the bake-off.
All right, our challenger is officially ready to go. It is time for the experiment to get underway. Let's get into the do-re-mi of this whole scientific showdown.
So here's how they set up this bake-off. The scientists made 5 different batches of dough. First up, you've got your control group, D0, made with 100% good old-fashioned butter. Then they started swapping it out. They made a batch with 25% oleogel, then one with 50%, another at 75%, and finally a batch made with 100% oleogel and 0 butter.
And when they put the doughs under a microscope, whoa, the difference was stark. The standard butter dough, you can see it had this nice, stable, even protein network. But the 100% oleogel dough, it looked completely different, all uneven and clumpy. This tells you right away that the kind of fat you use totally changes the fundamental structure of the dough.
And that difference they saw under the microscope? It had a very real effect on the texture. The 100% butter dough was the softest, the most pliable. But as they added more and more oleogel, the dough got progressively firmer. It's a direct result of that clumpy structure we just saw.
But hey, dough is only half the battle, right? The real test is the final product, the baked cookie. So now, it's time for the final crumb down.
Just looking at the finished cookies, the differences were pretty obvious. The 100% butter cookie came out smooth, with just a few cracks. But as you added more oleogel, the cookies got noticeably more cracks on the surface. And the scientists think this is because the different fats melt and spread out in different ways while the cookies are baking.
Okay, so what about the bite? The snap. When they actually tested the hardness, the 100% butter cookie was technically the hardest. But here's the real shocker. The differences between all the cookies were incredibly small, so replacing the butter with the healthier oleogel, it had almost no effect on the final texture. That's a big deal.
So after all that mixing, baking, and testing, what's the final verdict? Where did we land? This is where all the data points come together to reveal the study's biggest takeaway and a really practical tip for the future of baking.
The answer, the sweet spot, turned out to be 50%.
So why 50%? Well,
It all comes back to that internal dough structure we saw earlier. That 50-50 mix of butter and oleogel, it created what the researchers called an optimal and balanced structure. It wasn't too clumpy, it wasn't too soft. It was, quite literally, the best of both worlds.
I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. The researchers' own conclusion says it all. They found that, quote, it is feasible to replace butter with oleogel up to 50% without significantly compromising the properties of dough and cookies. That right there is a massive win for anyone who wants a healthier treat.
So, back to our big question. Can a cookie be delicious and good for you? Well, it looks like with a little help from science, the answer is a resounding yes. Which leaves us with one last thing to chew on. Is the future of baking, and maybe all of our favorite foods, hiding right here in a test tube?